You are listening to continuing coverage of the trial of Chad Daybell from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast. Let's go back to the courtroom.
Previous session, Stephen Boyce, presiding judge.
Thank you. Good morning. We've got our jurors, I believe, lined up and ready. So, Mr. Bailiff, you could have them brought in, please.
Jury's present and accountable.
All right. Thank you. Please be seated. All right. Good morning, everyone. We're on the record on case CR 22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell, continuing with the state's case in chief. And the court will note that the jurors are all present and accounted for, and also have signed their affirmation that they followed the court's admonishment as we broke for the day yesterday, not to in any way review any case history or information online or otherwise. So thank you for following that continuing instruction. As we left off yesterday, Mr. Pryor was conducting cross-examination of Investigator Wright, and I believe we'll be continuing with that cross-examination this morning. Is that where we are, Mr. Pryor? Yes, you may. And if you'd like to go ahead and we'll have the witness brought in and return to the stand, you can continue with your cross. All right. Good morning, Investigator Wright. Before we get started with additional cross-examination, I will just inquire, because of the court's exclusionary order, have you done anything since yesterday to either review any part of this case online or talk to anyone else about your testimony or theirs in this trial?
No.
Okay. Thank you for confirming that. I will note also you're still under oath for purposes of your testimony today. Mr. Pryor was conducting cross-examination, and you can continue with your cross at this time, Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, Judge. And could I utilize the Elmo as well, Judge?
Yes, just identify which exhibit will be published before you do that, please.
Judge, it's 299, I believe. It is 299.
Okay, and that's been admitted, so you may publish from 299 if you wish.
Good morning, Mr. Wright.
Good morning.
Now, Mr. Wright, the last time we spoke, just to recap a little bit, we discussed that Alex Cox's phone at 2011 to 2356 was at apartment 107, and that was his apartment. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then again from 001111, which is 1211 at night, to 941 in the morning of the 23rd. Again, it was his phone was at 565 Pioneer Road, number 107 as well, correct?
Yes.
And this exhibit illustrates the specific times that you were able to identify when Alex Cox was on the property of Chad Daybell. Is that right?
Yes, his device that I was reviewing.
His device. I'm sorry, that's correct. Do you have any information that Mr. Daybell was present on September 6th, 9th, 23rd, or 25th at the same time that Alex Cox was there?
I do not.
You testified that there were a number of occasions that Alex Cox went to a sportsman's gun club. Is that correct?
Yes.
And from my recollection, reading, it was a number of times on September 3rd, correct?
I recall, yes.
September 26th?
Yes.
September 27th?
Yes.
Now, on the 28th, you made note of the fact that there were some range sites, one out a bit of a distance. You said something about 100 yards. Is that right?
Yes.
Could you point that to me? Okay.
I believe that to be a 100-yard range.
And then 200 yards and then 300 yards. Okay. And is there a 50-yard range there at any point?
I believe this is possibly a 50-yard range.
Okay.
It has multiple lanes with the berms as separated, but I think that distance of the berm is approximately that distance.
Alex Cox on that day did not go to a short range shooting range. Is that or shooting area? Is that correct?
I can only say that I showed only data points on this map on that particular time. It's possible there are less precise data points and he could be elsewhere on the range as well.
But the data points that you have identified on this exhibit are quite specific in terms of gaps of time, correct?
Yes, they are. And they were, for the most part, GPS and fairly precise.
Right. So what you're showing by this is his travel up to at least, it appears, and please correct me, to the 200 and 300 range, and then returning back. Is that what you're seeing?
Yes. So the entire span of the period that he was there that day was 1525 to 1758. And if you notice, looking at some of these individual data points, there's a period of time in there that is, we get many data points, but then there's gaps in time where we don't really get any data points.
Okay.
So during the period when he seems to go down range and come back, we did get some very precise data, but during these gaps, I can't say where he is.
Okay. That could be potentially reloading his gun and just in a still spot, or checking the targets, such as that, correct?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. You discussed the prospect of seeing Alex Cox at the Sportsman's Warehouse. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And you noted that he bought some items. He bought a frog tog suit. I'm going to kill that. Frog tog suit, and the tag was still on it. Is that correct?
Yes. He had one that we recovered that had the tag from Sportsman's Warehouse still on the pants.
Was there any indication that those pants were ever worn or used?
Not that I'm aware of. They look new to me.
Okay. And then you talked about the 2 or 3 other items. We don't need to discuss the Dr. Pepper, obviously. But the other 2 items were what?
One was a woodland camo beanie, and then there was a flip mitt, a set of gloves,
Okay.
and then a ski mask.
Okay. And was there any indication that those had been used as well?
I only show that they were purchased in that same purchase with the frog tog pants,
Okay.
but I'm not aware that any of those other items were recovered in the investigation from Alex Cox's residence or anywhere else.
Okay. Did you happen to take any direction in your investigation into whether or not Alex Cox attempted to buy a hunting license at around that time?
I don't recall. I know on that particular date, it didn't appear he did at the Sportsman's Warehouse, but I'm not aware if he purchased one or not.
Did you look into whether he purchased a hunting license or not in the end of September?
I don't recall.
Okay. And again, we have some trips to the firing range in October 7th and 8th. Is that right?
Yes.
The 12th and the 13th?
Yes.
The 15th?
Yes.
Now, this allegation with the, and I don't want to mischaracterize this, the paintball gun or potentially some other weapon occurred on what day?
That was October 9th in the evening.
So October 9th in the evening, and then we have Alex Cox on October 12th, 13th, 15th going to the gun range after that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just for purposes of clarification, and I'll talk into the mic this time, just for purposes of clarification, the picture to the right, my right, which it appears it has a tag on it. Was that the actual hoodie that was just taken from Alex Cox's garage?
No.
Okay.
The image on the right is an image that I took within the Sportsman's Warehouse of that particular Igloo's 3-hole ski mask, which was the one on the receipt that was purchased when he was in the store. I'm not aware of any ski mask being recovered from his belongings that match the description of this particular item.
Okay. Now you put this in as a reference in October 9th, and October 9th would have been the day that Tammy Daybell encountered the person with the paintball gun or
yes,
any allegedly other potential weapon. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you noted that it appears that Alex Cox's phone travels close or near the Daybell property. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you go down to the bottom just before October 10th, and it says 1716 to 2353, correct?
Yes.
And that his phone at that point was at his apartment, 565 Pioneer Road, number 107. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the allegations against regarding the paintball gun or so-called other weapon, do you recall what time that allegedly occurred?
I don't recall the exact time. I believe it was around 9 p.m. between maybe 8:30 and 9:30, somewhere in that time.
Okay. So if it was between 8:30 and 9:30, would it be fair to say that Alex Cox's phone was at 565 Pioneer Road at his apartment at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And then further on into the evening, Thursday, October 10th, we have 03 to 11:28. And so midnight to 11:30 in the morning. Again, the phone was at Pioneer Road for what looks about 11 and a half hours on the 10th of October. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And again, October 18th of 2019 is what our reference point is. You're showing Alex Cox's phone at approximately 1:57 to 9:48 at night at Pioneer Road, 107, Rexburg, Idaho. Is that right?
I'm sorry, what date was that?
October 18th.
Okay.
Is that right?
And what were the times?
1:57 to 9:48, Pioneer Road, number 107.
Yes, that's correct.
The phone was at his apartment.
Yes, this is in the early morning hours. Yeah, 1:57 in the morning to 9:48 in the morning.
Okay. And then again, 9:49 to 12:37. Again, Lori Vallow's apartment.
Yes, that's correct.
What about later on the evening on the 18th?
So later, after it is in 175 at 12:37, it departs there and drives in the Idaho Falls area. And it made a few stops at commercial businesses, with the final stop being the Chick-fil-A, which was later that evening.
And when I say later that evening, what time do we have Alex Cox's phone in Idaho Falls on the evening of the 18th?
I believe it was at the Chick-fil-A at approximately 7:58. I'd have to maybe look at that slide again and refresh my memory, but I believe it was around 7:58, and there was that receipt that was recovered for a purchase there at 8:05 p.m.
Okay. And then the rest of the evening on the 18th?
He was at that location until for over an hour. I don't recall the exact time right now. And then he departs that location and drives north into within a few miles of the Daybell residence.
And how long was he at the Daybell? Well, he wasn't at the Daybell residence. He was at a church. Is that right?
That's right. He was south of the Daybell residence, more than 2 miles south of that.
2.6 miles?
Approximately, yes.
And that was from 2207 to 2245?
Yes.
Your red dots are to the right, my right, a number of red dots. And could you get your pointer out for me and point to where those red dots are?
There's some here near this house.
Did you happen to go out there and discover what that house is?
I did not, though I did make other investigators aware of that, and I'm not sure what follow-up they did on that.
Okay, so we don't, it appears that there's parking and an entrance there. Is that something that's affiliated with the church?
I don't know.
It would only be speculation if you were to guess what is on that property. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
We do know that the large building is a church building, correct?
Yes, that is.
And between those two buildings is a driveway, it looks to me. Is that correct?
This area?
Yes.
Yes, it's a narrow parking lot.
And it appears that as you come into the entrance where the red marks are, there appears to be parking spots in front of that building. Do you see those?
In this area?
No, over to the right, further to, just outside of where the red dots are, the parking near.
Oh, right here?
Yeah, right there.
Yes, those are parking spaces, I believe.
And then, like I said, just to clarify, where the red dots are on the roof of the building, there's parking spots that appears directly in front of that building. Is that correct?
On the church side or this?
That side, on that side there.
That does look like a driveway of some kind.
Okay. Okay. And I'm not going to belabor this, but on the right-hand side of that photo, from top to bottom, from where that road is to the bottom of the picture, there are a number of parking spots. Do you see those?
On the right side in this area?
Right there, all the way down.
Yes, there are many parking spots, it looks like.
And to the right of that, there's some parking on that road to the left, and there's other ones on the right. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, you mean...
No, over to the right there. You have parking spots on the left of that mark, and then further to the right of that, up closer to the grass, right there. There's a whole bunch of parking there as well,
yes.
right? And
yes.
that butts up against the building, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we can't make a presumption that in any way that's attached or affiliated with the church, but at least it appears that was close to where Alex Cox was visiting. Would that be fair?
Yes, potentially. We also had other data points on the other side of the building as well.
Okay. Now, he left whatever that building is and at 2245. Is that right?
Objection, Your Honor. Misstates testimony. There is no testimony. He left that building
Sustained.
and moved to strike.
I'll strike the question.
Yep. The phone points stopped recording at 2245 on October 18th at that site. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then where did it go from there, the phone?
There was no location data between 2245 and 2353. And at 2353, we got our first next point of location data, which put the phone south of this location on Highway 20.
How far south?
Distance, I'm not exactly sure. It was just west of Rexburg, basically as Highway 20 goes through Rexburg. Drive time, it was approximately a 7-minute drive time from this church if he had come from the church.
And then further after that, being south of Rexburg, where did you place him then?
He continued south on Highway 20 into Idaho Falls and stopped at the Hilton Garden in Idaho Falls.
And how long did the phone beep in Idaho Falls that evening?
It arrived at the Hilton Garden a little bit after midnight and stayed there till approximately 10 a.m. the next morning.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, at 2353, you had something west of Rexburg.
Yes.
And then you eventually had a phone data indicating that the phone was in Idaho Falls the evening of October 18th. Is that right?
Yes. After it was at the church you're talking about before that.
Well, it was at the church at 2245, correct? The phone?
Yes.
And then you said that there's a gap that you're not able to explain. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we can't make any presumptions about that gap, can we?
That's correct.
But then what we do have is we have another data point that's west of Rexburg as the next data point at 2353.
That's correct.
And then eventually we have data points indicating that the phone is in a hotel. And what is the time the phone's in the hotel in Rexburg on October 18th?
I would approximately 12:15, though I'd have to look at my report to refresh my memory, but approximately 12:15 it arrives at that hotel.
And that phone remains there until 10 o'clock the next morning in Idaho Falls?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Did you look into other occasions when Alex Cox's phone was not necessarily on the Daybell property, but near or within a few miles? For example, like at the Salem church. Did you look at other occasions when that may have occurred?
I noted the ones in my report where I thought it seemed to be in that vicinity, and that was those 7 occasions. There were other times that he certainly seemed to pass by, say on U.S. Highway 20, going north of there, but I saw nothing that indicated it seemed to make it to be going towards the Daybell residence or be staying in that area.
Other occasions on 1900 or on Salem Road?
I don't recall if there were any others specifically. I don't believe so, or I think I would have noted that.
As part of your investigation, you indicated that on a particular day, Alex Cox seems to have pulled off near a canal close or adjacent to the Daybell property. Do you recall that?
On October 9th, he crossed over he was traveling on 200 North, and he crossed that canal there near the Daybell property. There is a data point near there, and then a second data point. However, I can't say that he stopped there or not. Based on the data that I saw, if he did stop, it couldn't have been more than a minute or two.
So we can speculate whether so the indication that you talked about a pull off and that there was some gravel there and that would have been the only place he could have pulled off. You can't even say that he stopped there, can you?
No, I cannot.
Okay. I have nothing else, Judge. Thank you.
All right, that concludes cross-examination of the witness. If the state wishes to redirect, you may.
And Your Honor, may I be handed State's Exhibit 299?
Yes, that's the one we just had.
Agent Wright, can you remind the jurors when you became involved in this investigation?
Yes, on November 27th of 2019.
And Your Honor, for ease, I will request permission to publish on the Elmo as well.
And you may.
Investigator Wright, you were just asked some questions regarding these red dots. Do you see the cluster of dots?
Yes, I do.
Is that a building or a residence?
Judge, objection calls for speculation.
Sustain.
Agent Wright, through the investigation, did you learn or determine if that was a residence or a building?
I am not sure exactly what it is.
Any indication from the investigation that that building is linked to the church or that residence is?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any indication that Alex Cox knew anyone in this area other than Chad Daybell?
No.
And again, where those red dots are, where those data points are, given the radius, could a vehicle be in the church parking lot and still be showing data points within a residence?
Yes, those the data points on the left were GPS data points, and they were the most precise. The ones on the right were Wi-Fi data points, and they had a margin of error of upwards of 122 meters. And so the location of the actual device could be in the church parking lot or somewhere in that general area based on that margin of error.
And do you recall approximately the distance from that church and the parking lot to the Daybell residence?
I believe it's approximately 2.6 miles going up Salem Road.
Through the investigation, did you discover any connection between Alex Cox and Tammy Daybell?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Would the only connection have been Chad Daybell?
Yes.
And counsel talked to you yesterday about the radius, margin of error. I think some different terms were used. In relation to the data points that you have, again, where did you get those?
I got them from Agent Nick Balance, who had put them into the data file. The original source of the data that went into that review file was from Verizon for the cell phone data and from Google for the Homer J. Maximus at gmail.com account.
And when the providers provide those data points, is that who determines that radius?
Yes.
And that, again, that isn't something you specifically looked into. You were provided those data points.
Yes, that came from those providers.
And the data you reviewed was linked to a device associated with Alex Cox. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did you personally review any location data in relation to Chad Daybell?
I did not.
Did you review any location data in relation to Lori Vallow?
I did not.
Is it possible other investigators may have?
Yes, absolutely.
And in particular, would Agent Balance have been tasked with looking at those types of things?
Yes, I'm aware that we had received a lot of information, location information for devices of various levels of quality, and that data went to Nick Balance for review. It was only this one particular device that I also reviewed.
And yesterday, you were shown a message that came from an individual identified as Phoebe. Do you recall seeing that message yesterday?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall having reviewed those communications previous to yesterday?
Vaguely, yes, that was somewhat familiar to me, but exactly what those were and their meaning, I don't quite recall.
Do you recall in that message it being a request for Chad to help with something?
Yes, I do.
And was that pretty common through the investigation that people would turn to Chad for answers or help?
Yes.
Any indication Melanie and David were in Idaho on September 8th or 9th that you learned of through the investigation?
Judge, objection goes beyond cross.
He specifically asked about Melanie and David Gibb being
All right, Ms.
present.
Blake, I'll make a ruling first before I hear argument, please, but I'm going to overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Not that I'm aware of.
And counsel went over again a lot of the West Yellowstone data with you yesterday. In your review of that, what was your belief on whether or not Tylee came back from West Yellowstone?
Judge calls for speculation.
Overruled.
It was my conclusion that she appeared to probably have returned to her residence.
And again, did you know where, through the investigation, did you learn which unit Tylee Ryan was residing in?
Yes, at 175 at 565 Pioneer Road.
Your Honor, if I may publish from 299 again, and again, it being the PowerPoint.
You may.
And when looking at this particular slide, at what time was the device associated with Alex Cox in Unit 175?
On this particular date, which was early in the morning of September 9th, Alex Cox's device appeared there. There were 3 data points for the device, one at 0242 and another one at the same time as 0242 and then another at 337.
And again, based on your review of the data for the months of September and October, was this usual for that device to be there at that time?
No.
And then did you determine after being in Unit 175 where that device went?
Yes. The next data points we got that morning were back in 107 and continued to stay there until approximately 9 a.m. when it left 107 and drove to the Daybell residence.
And as far as being at the Daybell residence, counsel had talked to you yesterday about this image. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And there was some talk of that driveway. From your review, was there an easy access or tire marks that led from that driveway to where Tylee's remains were located?
I'm sorry, could you clarify
Yes, sorry.
Driveway?
Yes, that, do you see where the car is parked?
I do.
In that driveway, if I'm referring to that one as the longer driveway, does that residence have 2 driveways?
It does.
And is the other one shorter than that one?
Yes.
And can you show us where the other driveway is?
There's a driveway here that leads to an attached garage. And then there is a long one here that doesn't appear to lead to a garage.
And so looking at that longer one, did you see or observe tire marks or something that would lead you to believe that people accessed where Tylee's remains were located from that driveway?
I did not see tire marks that would have led from that driveway out into this back area.
And then if we look up in the left-hand corner where that red data point is, again, did you see tire marks or something that would indicate there would be access from that entry to where Tylee's remains were located?
I recall that there appeared to be ruts, if you will, but fairly faint, if I recall, that seemed to indicate vehicles could access the property from this location. There is a gate there that is wide enough for a vehicle to access the property.
And you were asked about Chad's work schedule. Did you know or did you determine what Chad's regular work schedule was?
I'm not exactly sure. I knew he was a writer.
Do you know whether or not he even had a regular work schedule?
Like a specific time he had to appear at an employment or a job, not that I'm aware of.
And I apologize, may I publish again?
Yes, you may.
I think counsel went over this message with you as well. But as far as Chad having a work schedule, did this message appear to indicate Chad was at his residence?
Yes, it did.
And again, was this message sent around the same time or shortly after the device associated with Alex Cox was at the property?
Yes.
So at least on Monday, September 9th, it appeared Chad would have been at his residence.
It appears from this message, yes.
And you were asked about whether or not you found the remnants of a raccoon. Do you recall that?
Yes.
In reality, were you ever looking for a raccoon?
No, we had a search warrant for only certain items.
And in
I don't
reality,
believe it included a raccoon.
in reality, were you looking for missing children?
Yes.
Did you in fact find those missing children's remains on Chad Daybell's property?
Yes, we found human remains for 2 children on the property, and we seized our search at the property after we found those 2 children.
I have nothing further.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Blake. Mr. Pryor, is there any requests for recross?
Judge, I don't think I'm going to request it at this point.
Very well. Thank you. That'll conclude the testimony then of Investigator Wright. Is he going to remain under subpoena from the state?
No, Your Honor, he may be released.
Okay.
He's not under subpoena from my office, Judge.
Okay. Thank you. That'll conclude your testimony then, Investigator Wright. You can go ahead and step in. Thank you. All right. Once you're ready, the state can call its next witness.
State would call Ray Hermosillo.
Very well.
solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
All right. The witness has been resworn at this point. Detective Hermosillo, I'll ask a few questions before we commence with your direct examination by Mr. Wood. Since this case has been going and you last testified, have you in any way observed any of the trial testimony?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Have you talked to anybody else about the testimony they've given during trial? Okay. Thank you for confirming that. Mr. Wood, if you'd like to inquire on direct, you may.
Thank you. Good morning, Detective.
Morning.
You've already testified, but if you can just briefly remind the jury what you do for a living in Rexburg.
I'm a lieutenant over detectives in Rexburg Police Department.
And were you involved in the search for Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow?
Yes, I was.
Detective, do you recall approximately when Lori Vallow was arrested?
February 20th of 2020.
And do you know where she was, what jail she was eventually held in?
Eventually in Madison County Jail.
Are you aware if the Madison County Jail has a phone system for people who are in the jail to speak with friends and family?
Yes, they do.
All right. What is that system called?
It's called Intelmate.
Do you have access to Intelmate?
We do.
How do you access Intelmate?
Through the police department, they give us a username and password. And so we log on and we're able to listen to phone calls from inmates.
And so those phone calls are recorded.
They are.
Do you have any ability to alter or change those recordings with your login information?
No, we don't.
As part of your investigation into searching for JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan, did you listen to jail phone calls between Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell?
I did.
Why were you doing that?
At that point, we still had 2 missing children. So every day we listened to phone calls between Chad and Lori, and there were multiple phone calls. But we were trying to get any information to the whereabouts of JJ and Tylee at that time.
How often would they speak with each other?
Maybe 10 or 12 times a day.
Your Honor, I'm going to ask that the witness be handed what's been marked as State's Exhibit 392. Counsel has been given a copy already, and I have a courtesy copy for the court.
Thank you.
Detective, do you recognize State's Exhibit 392?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
A thumb drive that I listen to recordings on. Listen. Yes, ma'am.
Are your initials on that?
No, not on this one.
I might have the actual exhibit, then I'll trade for the courtesy copy, please. Thank you, Mr. Bailiff.
Are your initials on that exhibit?
Yes, they are.
So you have reviewed the contents of that specific exhibit?
Yes.
As part of your investigation, did you ever listen to a jail phone call recorded on June 8th, 2020 at 9:16?
Yes, I did.
Is that what's contained on that exhibit?
Yes, it is.
Is that a true and accurate representation of the jail phone call you listened to?
It is, yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask that State's Exhibit 392 be entered into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Judge.
All right. Exhibit 392 is admitted.
Detective, I believe you testified you'd listened to many jail phone calls, correct?
Correct.
Just briefly, is there a reason why this jail phone call stuck out to you?
Yes. The content in which you're about to hear, what they were talking about and who they were referencing, stuck out to us. Yes.
And we spoke about that this jail phone call was recorded on June 8th of 2020. Do you recall an event that took place on June 9th of 2020?
Yes.
What happened that day?
That was when we served the search warrant on the Daybell property and found Tylee and JJ.
And so did you listen to this June 8th recording before or after June 9th?
It was after June 9th.
And Your Honor, if I may publish by HDMI?
You may.
And Judge, for purposes, I'm going to ask that the entire audio recording be published.
You intend to publish the whole call, Mr. Wood, or an excerpt?
Your Honor, I intended to start the call in at about 6 minutes. I think if Mr. Pryor wants to play the rest during cross, he's certainly welcome to.
Yeah, I would agree. You can publish an excerpt if you'd like, and the entire call has been admitted. And if you wish to play other sections not played by the prosecution, you can do that on cross.
And for the record, Your Honor, I am going to start at 6:10 or 6:04. So that's where it's going to let me start.
Visions under pillars of fire. That's what you were reading to me.
Yeah.
Because at the very beginning,
If I can inquire, is that coming through the...
No, it's not.
it says, this was all still before the second coming. The Lord had ordained for us to begin the millennial day within Zion and her cities while war and chaos reigned everywhere else. So it was already like the millennium. They were already living millennial way
Like a pocket. Yeah.
the whole time.
That's kind of how I've seen it. As begins with a family, then a neighborhood, then a town, then a city. And New Jerusalem's kind of the best example of that.
Right.
Yeah, it starts small, but grows exponentially. It's little, and they're doing all they can to destroy one of the key families, but they're not going to.
I mean, there's so much that I know. I was sitting here thinking about that. I know too much.
Yes.
I can't deny it. I know it's just a matter of time. I just don't know what that timing is.
So I texted Ray. He responded pretty quick.
Detective, I'm going to pause it there. Did you hear Mr. Daybell say I texted Ray?
I did.
It's because my microphone wasn't up here. Yes, I can. Did you hear Mr. Daybell say that he texted Ray?
Yes, I did.
Through your investigation, did you become aware of any individual that had a nickname or alias of Ray?
Through our investigation, we learned that Alex Cox often went by Ray Lamar. We also associated a Gmail account through phone records back to Alex Cox, and that Gmail was raylamar@gmail.com.
Now, what was the date of this phone call again?
June 8th of 2020.
And was Alex Cox alive or dead at this time?
No, he was deceased.
Do you recall when he died?
December 12th of 2019.
Detective, through your investigation, did you find any information that Chad Daybell claimed to have the ability to speak with people who were deceased?
Judge, I'm going to object. Relevance.
Overruled.
Through our investigation, interviews with multiple witnesses that were close to him, through the teachings in his books, he would often talk about how he had the ability to see and speak with people on the other side of the veil.
And Your Honor, I'm going to resume playing at 7:34.
All right. Before you do that, Mr. Wood, I think we might be able to assist on the audio.
Your Honor, I'm going to start playing at 7:34. And if the court can let me know if it's coming through the speakers.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, that's good. Usually it's hard to get a hold of him. He's busy
Okay.
days.
Yes, but I asked him what we'd talked about, and he's very optimistic.
It was very optimistic for you, or he's very optimistic it could happen.
He's very optimistic. for both of us.
He doesn't know his own project timeline.
He said, stick with it. What he projected in that paper he wrote.
House renovations always take longer than they think.
That's the problem.
I've been watching that Extreme Pools,
Uh-huh.
and the people are like 3 months out. Like, when they estimated they'd have it done, and they're like, we had so many problems, we couldn't get to the backyard, we had to pull a crane over the house to get these huge rocks for the waterfall.
I can remember last summer, Taylor Hill, Mark's friend, parents moved into a trailer, like a camping trailer, in their driveway because they were going to build their house by the end of the year. Guess where they're still at?
Really?
They sold their house to their son. It's just a weird situation, but you're exactly right. Yeah, it takes forever.
Yeah, there's always something comes up. Well, we didn't know when we dug in your backyard we were going to find whatever. And then they're like, we have to redo all the piping, and then we had trouble with this, and then something else happened. And so, but they try to make it sound like it wasn't really that long, but it's always like, it's going to take 3 months. And then 3 months after that, they're like, okay, it took 6 months. You couldn't come in your backyard at all. And now it's not summer anymore. Now it's winter, and your pool is finally done.
Right.
Mostly they do it in Florida and places like that. So he's optimistic about his construction problems, not problems, but plan.
Yeah.
His construction plan, the blueprints are still intact.
Yes.
They're tiny.
And I kind of just said, I texted him what you just said is, you guys are always a little off.
Right, exactly. We just want a real estimate.
Right.
What do you say?
He just laughed.
So he did not confirm nor deny that fact. That contractors are always later than they think they're going to be.
He's like, it'll work out, how he is. He did want me to say he misses you, but he's not far from, contact. We can talk, we can text him whenever he wants.
Yeah, I can't text anybody. Have text. You need to text for me. That's like me telling you, I need you to tell this person and talk to this person.
I'll text him back. But he's optimistic. I want to go visit him and grab him by the throat and say, really?
Can he? I know he's optimistic, but can he just make us any guarantees? I mean, we did make our down payments and everything else.
Guarantee.
It was like a guarantee, just an end date of our project.
Well, he knows you pretty well. So he just laughs. No, I asked him what he thought of the video project. He said it was really nice. He loved it.
Oh, good.
Detective, through your investigation, were you aware of any type of video put out about Alex Cox around this time?
Not around June 8th. But shortly after Alex Cox died, his sister Summer Shiflett made a YouTube video with clips of Alex, photos throughout his life, and put it to music. And so we viewed that early on in the investigation, but that's what is being referred to here.
Judge, I'm going to object. That calls for speculation. He can't speculate is what it calls for.
Untimely, overruled.
And Judge, I had stopped playing at 12:13. I'm going to recommence playing at 12:13.
You may.
Yeah, well, that's good. Although I'd never heard that song before. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's just something on like iMovie or something that's on your phone.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like one of the backgrounds that you can
Church
use or something.
found just a happy one. Yeah.
I don't know, because I've never even heard that one, or I've never seen the app, but I know people can do that. iMovie, it was always on my iPhone. I just didn't ever click on it.
Yeah. But frustratingly optimistic, I guess is.
So frustrating for us.
Yeah,
We're gonna be
that's what I
completed.
mean.
Thanks for completing your project on time. Will they get a bonus? They do it.
Oh yeah, we'll give him a bonus. It was good. It was good to talk. You know, I hadn't texted him in a while.
So he would still answer all my questions in the same way, you think, if I texted him?
I think you ought to write down some questions for him and maybe even mail them off and see what happens. See if he'll respond to you. I have no doubt. Don't forget President Holland's talk. That snippet. He seemed like he wants to text you if he could. Yeah, it's all true. That's all I can say. They haven't forgotten.
I know they want to work on their project and they're not too happy and busy. You know, that's how I filtered out. Oh, just like, I'm busy.
Well, the truth to that.
It's good. It's good. You know what I'm saying?
No, he's still very interested. He hasn't forgotten about us.
Good. I know he has other projects, so I know how much time that takes.
He's involved in this latest batch.
Well, remind him when you do text him back that at the beginning of this project, he said there was only like a 3% chance that there would be trouble from certain aspects. And then there's like 100% trouble because that's where it all started. So find out about that.
Right.
See what he has to say for himself on that issue. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
Recall what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Judge, I'm going to stop at 1635. Detective, who is asking who to obtain information in that snippet we just heard?
Lori was asking Chad for information.
Your Honor, I'm going to continue playing at 1635.
You may.
So I want to know why that is 100% instead of 3% chance of having a problem.
I think he was somewhat right in that. The other aspect was other people. It was a combination.
I know it was a combination. I'm not saying there were other problems, obviously. It's of the location. But what I'm saying is that it's a combination of only, 5 problems.
I agree.
That was a big one.
It was a big one. Uh-huh.
So my faith in those kinds of guarantees are lower.
Me too.
And beggars can't be choosers. I get that, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I get to pick the colors of everything that I want. He's just going to have to figure it out.
Right.
Since I'm here and I can't be in charge of the project. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've thought back on that entire scenario.
We went over the plan and the blueprint.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, he said that wouldn't be a problem.
So
Right.
Well,
What to take on that? Why was that?
it really was.
Right.
No, I don't doubt that. It's just strange how it blossomed. So
So go ahead.
you go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, so you think it was meant to have complications and meant to go that direction?
At some point, yeah.
Well, then you should have said, hey, this is a 99% chance that we're gonna have trouble with this soil.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's all we were asking.
Well,
Could this potentially be good, or do we have to fill it with sand?
I think we sensed that we shouldn't take it lightly, and I don't think we did. I mean, we only discussed the matter with the trouble once, and I thought we cut it off and did well, and now that problem is kind of causing its own trouble for itself.
Right. But there's other things in the project where when I'm going back over it, right, that I could have easily done or been inspired to do to avoid a lot of the issues that are going to come up with that.
Yeah.
That we weren't made aware of. So you see what I'm saying?
I do.
It was meant to go this way, you think? That's what I'm saying.
I do. It's terrible. Minor changes here and there, but overall, this was part of the blueprint. I mean, I just wish it hadn't been. But I'm thinking of previous blueprints where the people weren't warned either. It's maddening. But, Ray's in that contractor position for a reason, and he's not gonna drop us for another project.
Well, can't he forcibly use a hand, punch some people in the face, and get some things done? Some people in particular, like the 3%er person?
I don't think he wants to be violent. But
Well, I'm not saying be violent. I'm saying get their attention.
He did. What he did was kind of mute her effect. He just kind of kept her in her place for quite a while, to the point it almost diffused any value of her.
Not talking about that. In the beginnings, going back over the whole blueprint and all the things that we've been, I don't know what the word is, when you go through it. Anyway, a lot of that stuff could have been avoided, just minor tweaks.
Yes.
And I don't know why it had to go down this road to where we are now in the project.
I know. I don't fully understand. I think he'd text you back or write you back.
Ultimately, what I need from you is that the project is going to be finished and everything is going to be fine and it's going to work out.
That's what he said.
Well, I need you to tell me that every day, several times.
Okay. My sweet, lovely Lolo. Things are going to work out. Not just because he says so, but because I know so. It's a marvelous plan. Slight
How do you know so?
hiccup. How do I know? It's been shown to me, honey. I've seen those beautiful eyes filled with tears as she sings to amazing groups of people, and I've seen that wonderful body dance to heavenly songs.
Your Honor, I'm stopping at 2641.
Right.
Detective, in that conversation, who is asking who for assurances?
Lori was asking Chad, and we found that throughout multiple phone calls, she would ask Chad for assurance.
And who said they had seen the plan?
The defendant, Chad Daybell.
Your Honor, I'm starting again at 2641.
Your purpose is only beginning. It's hardly begun. And it will be the pair. It won't be solo. And it's going to be incredible.
Be cholo and not solo.
That's right. Yep. It will be the Eurythmics. No solo careers. I'm just absolutely sure. I was saying it will be the Eurythmics. It won't be 2 solo careers.
I know, but I'm saying you said you have absolute what? Confidence?
Absolute assurity, confidence, confirmation. It's going to be as seen. There's some things that aren't going to be altered. Your value is tremendous, immense, and needed in every way. You're tremendous, my love. I know that is a fact. I think you underestimate yourself. I'm not trying to give you a big head or ego because you don't have one. You just are spectacular, and the Lord is going to use those talents. You're on earth at this time for that purpose. I'll try to call you back so we can pray. Okay.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
All right. Counsel, before we begin cross here, I think this would be an appropriate time to take our mid-morning recess. So let's go ahead and do that. It's right at 10 o'clock. So if we could start up again, we'll try for 10:25 to be back with cross-examination starting.
All rise, please.
There's more to come in the trial of Chad Daybell. Press subscribe so you don't miss any of our continuing coverage right here from True Crime Today and the Hidden Killers podcast.